Welcome to another CEV Field Trip production. We're glad you could join us as we tour the facilities of one of the nation's more innovative hatcheries, the A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery located in San Marcos, Texas. Owned by the state of Texas and managed by Texas Parks and Wildlife personnel, the hatchery produces more than 20 million fry annually, which are used to stock public waters and reservoirs. Your tour includes a visit to the incubation room, where you'll see channel catfish and paddlefish eggs hatching. You'll also view the spawning behavior of flathead catfish. Moving out into the shipping and holding area, you'll get a chance to watch the pit tagging of genetically marked Florida largemouth bass, as well as the spawning of koi carp. In the raceways, you'll get to view young paddlefish and learn more about this fascinating endangered species. Following your tour of the raceways, you'll visit the on-site laboratory and the outside rearing ponds. The tour will conclude with a look at the special trailer used to transport the many types of fish raised at the hatchery to their new homes. Now, let's join Pat Hudson, Director of Programs for the Texas Parks and Wildlife Fish Hatchery System.
I'd like to welcome you to the A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery. This is an ultra-modern, state-of-the-art fish hatchery that was recently built 3 years ago and went into production. The primary mission of the facility is the production of around 20 million fish annually for distribution into Texas public reservoirs. Construction of the facility was generally built through matching funds from the federal aid system, where 3/4 of the cost was given by the federal system and the rest state funds to produce this $13 million facility. Operation of the facility is through the sale of licenses by the department, and no tax dollars are used for the operation. It is strictly through the sale of fishing and hunting license in the state. The facility is staffed by a biologist 3 who manages the facility. There is also 3 biologist 2s who have special responsibilities within the facility. And then we have a technical staff of 9 more people that operate the facility year-round.
Now that you've met the staff, let's begin our tour in the main hatchery building, the Robert J. Kemp Jr. Fisheries Center. We'll start in the incubation room. This room plays a very important role in the overall success of the hatchery because it is here that the majority of the fry, or baby fish, are hatched. The quality of water is extremely important to the survival of fish, both in the wild and here at the hatchery, and it plays a very crucial role in the hatching of fry. Here at the hatchery, 2 types of water are used, raw water and treated water. The raw water can be either river water or reservoir water, or a combination of the 2. The types of treated water include sand filtered to remove particulates and sediments, UV sterilized to remove bacteria, heat treated or cooled by use of a heat pump, which can vary the water plus or minus 10 degrees from the ambient temperature, or any combination of these water treatment processes. The treated water is only used in the incubation room because this is where the fish or fry are at their most vulnerable stage. It is extremely important to have the cleanest, purest, healthiest water possible for the fry during this sensitive time. As you enter into the incubation room, you'll notice 2 large racks of jars on both your right and left sides. These are called McDonald jar racks, and they are what the fish eggs are incubated in. Let's join Lorraine as she discusses the use of the McDonald jars.
In here right now we have some channel catfish fry. There's about 30,000 in each of these jars. Like I said earlier, you're here at the tail end. If you'd come here last week, this entire jar rack would have been filled with 72 jars of channel catfish, turning into about 2 million some odd fish. It's really important for us to have the two different jar racks because we're able to use two different types of water. For example, maximum or optimal temperature for the channel catfish is about 75 degrees, where 68 is ideal for the paddlefish. And with our heat pump, we can cool our river water to 68 degrees and incubate the fish at optimal temperatures. We've used these jars for other species, including walleye, striped bass, white bass, the channel catfish, flathead catfish, paddlefish. The channel catfish take about 3 days to hatch, and then we leave them in the jars another 3 days until they start turning gray and they're ready to eat. In the meantime, when they first hatch, they're just an egg with a tail, and they start developing their mouth parts after they hatch. So they have considerable development to do before we move them on. From the jar rack, they'll go into our feeding trays where we'll train them to accept an artificial diet. In these jars, we have the paddlefish. Their behavior is totally different than the channel catfish. After they hatch, they actually swim up, and the water current helps them, and they are carried to this trough, which the water flow delivers them to the circular tanks. And we'll harvest them from the circular tanks before it's time to start feeding them. Just like the catfish and most species of fish, they're born without a digestive system, and it takes time for that to develop, so they're not ready to eat yet. These are the paddlefish that have swam up and they're being collected in this tank. There's probably about 125,000 fish in this trough. They grow really fast once they start eating. We'll harvest them tomorrow or the next day, move them to our raceways where they have more space so we can start feeding them and growing them to about 8 inches where they'll be stocked. These are the feeding trays where the fish are trained to eat food. It's not necessarily something that they automatically do. Their instinct is to go after living food sources, and we're giving them an artificially prepared diet. So basically what you have to do is crowd them up, and the more aggressive ones will start eating that food, and they basically teach the other ones to eat. We stock these troughs out at about 50,000 fry per trough. They come here when they're about 3 days after they hatch, when they're just starting to turn gray, and they have a mouth, but they don't have a fully developed digestive system. We feed them a fish food that is made for fish. It's a real fine powder that floats, so to really get it down to the fish, we have to wet it so it'll sink to them. We feed these about 5 times a day. I don't weigh it. It's a couple of handfuls per trough, and the idea is to make it available to all of them. You have to evenly distribute it throughout the trough when you're feeding them. From here, once the fish are trained to eat and are eating good and swimming around, they'll either go to a pond where they'll be grown to stocking size, but the ones we're moving right now are going into our shipping and holding troughs to be grown up and used in a feeding experiment.
Along with the 2 racks of McDonald jars and the 18 fry-rearing troughs, the incubation room also houses 12 6-foot diameter circular fiberglass tanks. Each of these tanks and fry troughs are equipped with an automatic feeder, packed column oxygen diffuser, temperature and dissolved oxygen sensors, and water level alarms. Currently, the hatchery is using the circular tanks to spawn flathead catfish.
These are flathead catfish. They're also called yellow cats and Opelousas. Each of these weigh about 15 pounds. There's a male and a female. We put them in here for spawning. They can grow to over 100 pounds, and they're excellent eating, and there's demand for them as a commercial fish as well as a sport fish. They are a very difficult fish to culture because they won't, unlike the channel catfish, they won't take a prepared diet very readily. They also were caught in the wild about 2 years ago, and they're still essentially wild fish, and they don't respond very well to the hatchery environment. When they spawn, the first thing you'll notice is that they have a behavior. They sort of curl around each other, and the female will deposit eggs, and that could take up to 3 hours, and the male will fertilize them. After that, in the wild, the male would drive the female away and guard the eggs until the fry swam up and away. We have to be on top of things if they spawn and we don't remove the eggs, the female may eat them if the male doesn't successfully guard them. So typically, whenever we get a spawn, the first thing we'll do is remove the female, and we'll leave the eggs alone for about 24 hours thereafter, because the first 24 hours are very delicate and easily damaged. And after they're 24 hours old, then we'll harvest them and put them in our jars for incubation.
Now our tour will move out into the area which houses the shipping and holding troughs and the raceways.
These are our shipping and holding troughs. Normally we use them to hold fish. After we drain a pond, we hold them in here overnight to allow them to eliminate waste from their system so that we haul them in clean water. Yeah, these are fry that were just moved from the incubation room. They're the same size of fry that go into the ponds. They're about a week old right now. Out here we only have river water and reservoir water. Right now we're running them on reservoir water, but if we want to cool them down, we can switch to river water. We don't have any treated water anywhere except in the incubation room. We have the same alarm system down there for high level, low level. Have those in almost everything we put water in. And we have automatic feeders for feeding the fry. They're not set up yet. We like to feed them by hand at first, and then as they grow, then we'll put them on the automatic feeders. These are the valves that we use to control what kind of water our raw water is. We've got a reservoir and a river. We can open up one or the other or both to blend them. And these are thermometers so that we can read our water temperature remotely, without going to the river. The river runs around 70. Really, it's between 68 and 72 year-round. The reservoir right now, 79, is getting pretty warm. It shouldn't get too much warmer during the summer. And in the winter, it can get down to 40.
We will now travel to one of the outside ponds to watch the collection of koi carp broodfish. The hatchery raises koi carp and goldfish as forage for their captive broodstock, which includes smallmouth bass, Florida largemouth bass, and catfish. These broodfish need live fish to eat, so the hatchery provides 15,000 pounds of forage fish per year. The koi have been drained into a concrete structure called a modified Kansas kettle, which is located at the lowest end of every pond. The Kansas kettle greatly enhances the drainage of the pond and the entrapment of the fish in a safe manner. The koi are being collected and sexed so that they may be paired up in the shipping and holding troughs for spawning. The males are being placed in the rear net and the females are being placed in the net in front. The sex of the fish is determined by its shape, size, and profile. A swollen red ovipositor indicates a female. The males can be differentiated from females by the emission of semen, which appears as a milky white substance upon palpation. The staff are collecting 70 pairs of fish for spawning. The males and females are transported in separate compartments in a specially designed trailer. Upon arrival, the fish are counted out in groups of 7 males and 7 females. Prior to being placed in the troughs, the fish are dipped in a 3% salt water solution to stimulate the production of mucus. Mucus, or slime, is a natural defense mechanism for the fish. Due to the handling required to sex the fish, placing them into the truck and subsequently into the holding troughs, it is necessary to stimulate additional production of mucus to protect the fish. After the salt dip, the fish are weighed and then placed in the troughs for spawning. Mark will now explain the spawning procedures of the koi carp.
After we salt dip the fish and we get the weight on them, they'll stay in this trough overnight. They'll have a cover put over them so that they can't jump out, and they will spawn this evening. The fish are only actually in here less than a day. Tomorrow morning we'll come back and we'll have egg coverage on the entire piece of spawn tex. We'll remove our brood fish. We'll raise the water level up. You can see the line here. We'll raise the level of the tank or the trough up. We'll pull our mats up, put an air line down through the center we'll actually use these bricks to hold our airline down. That'll provide some gentle aeration. These pieces on the ends will also be laden with eggs. We'll hang those in here. The eggs will be treated with formalin to help prevent fungus. And the eggs will actually stay in here and incubate in this trough for about 3 days before hatching, as opposed to taking the eggs to the incubation room for hatching there. So at about 3 days we get a hatch. It'll take another 3 days for those guys to swim up, to develop to the point where they've almost used up all of their yolk sac, and they need to start looking for food elsewhere. At that point, those fish go out to a fertilized rearing pond, or we'll bag them, put them in styrofoam boxes, and ship them off to other state hatcheries where they can rear these fish out in ponds. We expect about 250,000 to 500,000 fry per 7 pairs of fish. We don't know exactly how many eggs that is because we're not enumerating eggs at this point. We just enumerate the fry. These particular fish are group spawners, where a male or several males actually follows a female. You may see small schools of 5 and 6 fish scurrying around, and generally the center of attention will be the female. That is opposed to the parrot-off fish like the largemouth bass, the smallmouth bass, the catfish. Those fish all form pairs to spawn, and the male fertilizes the egg. Here you have several males fertilizing the eggs. And they'll get pretty active. It turns into somewhat of a frenzy, so much so that when we come back in the morning, we'll have eggs stuck all the way up, all along the sides up here. They'll actually get thrown up out of the water.
Quiz 1. Where is the A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery located? A. San Antonio, Texas. B. San Marcos, Texas. C. Santa Fe, New Mexico. D. San Angelo, Texas. Baby fish are called A. Fingerlings, B. Broodfish, C. Smelt, D. Fry. In the video, the hatchery is using circular tanks to spawn A. Paddlefish, B. Perch, C. Flathead catfish, D. Walleye. What type of water is used in the incubation tanks? A. Treated, B. Chlorinated, C. Fumigated, D. Lake. Koi carp are raised for A. Sport fishing, B. Experimentation, C. Forage, D. None of the above. Our tour continues on the other end of the building as we view Lorraine and her staff pit tagging genetically marked Florida largemouth bass.
Well, these are fish that have a unique genetic mark, and we're going to, we had to determine that by doing a fin biopsy on them, and that's already been done. So in the meantime, we put a temporary tag on them. So right now we're going to remove that temporary tag and put a permanent tag inside them. And to do that, we have to anesthetize the fish. They're being anesthetized in a approved fish anesthetic. The trade name is Fin Quell. This is the tag that we're going to be putting into the fish. It's called a PIT tag, which is an acronym for Passive Integrated Transponder. It consists of a microchip, which is encoded with a 10-digit alphanumeric number, and a electromagnetic coil. We activate it with a low-frequency radio signal, and that transmits the code to us. This tag will be placed into the fish's body cavity while the fish is anesthetized. This machine transmits a low-frequency radio signal that activates that electromagnetic coil in the PIT tag. And then after we ask it to collect the data, it will tell us what number that is. So each fish has a unique number, and we can trace them back for however long we want to. The tag has an indefinite lifetime, so as long as the fish is alive, the tag is fine. There's very low rejection rate of the tags, And once they're implanted in the fish, they essentially have no troubles with them at all.
The raceway area contains 8 80-foot by 8-foot by 3-foot concrete raceways supplied by river or reservoir water at up to 475 gallons per minute. Each raceway is equipped with automatic feeders, low-pressure air, packed column diffusers, an airlift and gravity flow water reuse system, water level alarms, and temperature and dissolved oxygen sensors. Water from the raceways can be reused, distributed to lower level ponds as overflow water, or sent to the wastewater ponds. In addition, each raceway is equipped with a fish transfer unit through which fish can be directly moved to outside transportation units. Jake will give us more detail on some of the equipment used in the raceways.
We've got 3 standpipes, and they allow the water to go 3 different places. Plus we've got the fish transfer, which I talked about, this drain right here with the rod on it. The fish transfer allows us the capability to actually drain fish from the raceway to the back of the building and into a waiting truck. These bubbles are from the low pressure air, and we've got that plumbed in with a PVC pipe with small holes drilled periodically through that pipe, and that does 2 things. One is it keeps the fish away from the screen. It won't completely keep them from escaping, but it does keep them from crowding up. A lot of times if we're draining a raceway or cleaning it, there's a lot of water flow. Certain fish will tend to pack up against the screen, and this keeps them back from it. The other thing that does is help cleans the screen too. Just continually keeps the screen fairly clean. Hooks in the raceway, that's one of the things they're used for, is to set up pins. A variety of catfish, channel catfish, blue catfish, flathead catfish can be sexed and paired off into individual pins so that individual pairs of fish are spawned, as opposed to bass spawning. Right now, bass spawning in the raceway, what we do is we lay out mats for them to spawn on and let them pair up themselves. What we've got in this ceramic jar is a pair of flathead catfish. And we're trying to get them to spawn. You saw some larger flatheads in the incubation room. The smaller ones may spawn in a jug like this.
Part of the raceways are currently being occupied by paddlefish fry. The paddlefish are an endangered and protected species in the state of Texas. Texas Parks and Wildlife is raising paddlefish to restock the waters east of the Trinity River, which is where the paddlefish are naturally endemic. The A.E. Woods Fish Hatchery receives paddlefish eggs from the states of Missouri and South Dakota. These eggs go into the McDonald jars in the incubation room, which we saw earlier in the tour. After hatching, the fry swim up and into the circular troughs where they stay until their digestive system is developed. Then they move out to the raceways where feeding is begun. The paddlefish fry we see here are about 6.5 weeks old. Since they are filter feeders, the paddlefish have large gaping mouths. Paddlefish swim through the water with their mouths wide open and filter out the plankton from the water that passes into their mouths and out their gills. Intensive management and feeding in the raceway environment have conditioned the paddlefish to eat a prepared diet. The fry are currently receiving a trout salmon feed that is approximately 50% protein. The feed itself looks like coffee grounds, and its size is approximately that of large aquatic zooplankton. The fry consume 10 to 12% of their body weight daily, grow about an inch a week, and have a feed conversion ratio of 2 pounds of feed per pound of gain. These fry will be shipped out for stocking when they reach a length of 8 to 9 inches. Paddlefish are often incorrectly called spoon-billed catfish because of their slick skin. However, they are not related to catfish. Paddlefish have no skeletal structure, but instead have cartilage, similar to that of prehistoric fish. Paddlefish in Texas are not considered a sport fish because of their limited numbers, but in many states like Missouri and South Dakota, they are fished for sport. However, your favorite bass lure would be of no help if you were to fish for them because they are plankton feeders. Paddlefish will not strike at a lure, so the only way you can catch one is to snag it. But you better be strong, as adults weigh between 130 and 150 pounds. Now, let's join Lorraine in the laboratory.
This is our laboratory, and we accomplish several missions at this laboratory. We're involved with genetic work with our fish. That could include stock identification or species identification, whichever mission we were interested in. We also accomplish our zooplankton analyses to make sure that our pond waters are fertile to support the life. We also do water quality to make sure that the water quality will support the life. And we have a fish health unit where we diagnose for fish disease and also help evaluate stressful conditions.
Mark will now discuss the growing ponds.
Outside we have 50 lined ponds. We've got 45 1-acre ponds, that's 1 surface acre, for grow out and brood fish holding. We've got 5 1/4-acre ponds that are intended for research purposes. We've also got 2 wastewater ponds which catch our suspended solids so that we can release clear water to the river. We've got a plankton pond that's also a 1/4 acre. We use that pond for growing our zooplankton so that we can transfer aliquots of that to other ponds for inoculation purposes. We have a 9-acre reservoir, and it provides water for the entire hatchery in times of special need. We cannot pump river water to the building, or it also gives us an option of a different temperature water if we need to mix water for special culture such as egg incubation or fry incubation in our incubation room. The ponds themselves are made out of a black plastic called Hypalon. This stuff is actually 2 layers of plastic that sandwiches a nylon weave in between them. It's flexible, fairly durable material. The pond liners help us in terms of standardization between the ponds. When we're working on really refining fertilization regimes, we need to have standardization between all the ponds. If you've got earthen ponds, you're going to have different levels of organic material in the ponds. You don't know at what point you're starting with in terms of your organic load in the pond. The lined ponds are also very nice when they're clean because the fish drain very nicely into the kettle. They also help reduce the vegetation in the ponds. Whereas if you've got that earthen bottom pond, you can get rooted aquatic macrophytes. This liner, this membrane, will prevent any rooting of those macrophytes so they can't live in the ponds.
Let's join Jake as he discusses the trailer used to transport fish and fry to lakes and reservoirs.
This is the fish hauling unit that we use to haul most of the fingerlings that we transport to public waters. It's a gooseneck trailer specially built to haul this insulated fiberglass hauling tank that hauls about 600 gallons of water. It's equipped with 12-volt agitators that help disperse the water and the oxygen, and also equipped with compressed oxygen that's diffused through a diffusal system. This is actually a very fine porous fiber that diffuses the oxygen into very small bubbles and creates a much higher DO, or dissolved oxygen, in the water than you naturally would have. With this capability, we're able to haul about up to probably 400,000 small fingerlings, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, and bigger fish. The numbers decrease, but the pounds decrease, and on bigger fish you could probably haul up to 1,200 to 1,500 pounds of larger size fish, 6 to 8 inch fish, for relatively long periods of time. When we get to the lake, we've got tempering pumps that we're able to mix the water in the tank with the water that's in the lake to acclimate the fish to not only the temperature but the pH and other water quality factors. So when we get there, we can temper those fish and make sure that the water is the same in both the tank and the lake, and then we're able to either net them out of the tank, or in some applications we can actually deliver them through this drain system that manifolds the 3 compartments together. We can either deliver one tank at a time to different places, or all 3 to one lake. We've got a large hose that fits on the back there, and we're able to shoot them out with that.
Quiz 2. PIT stands for A, Passive Integrated Transponder, B, Protection in Tanks, C, Previous Integration Tank, D, none of the above. Which of the following is an endangered fish? A, channel catfish, B, trout, C, koi carp, D, paddlefish. Instead of bones, paddlefish have A, muscles, B, tendons, C, joints, D, cartilage. Lab functions include A, genetic work, B, zooplankton analysis, C, water quality analysis, D, all of the above. How many gallons of water does the transport tank hold? A, 200, B, 600, C, 800, D, 1,500. As we conclude our tour of the A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery, let's review the different types of fish spawned there throughout the calendar year. Rainbow trout are in production from the middle of November through the end of February. Out-of-season Florida largemouth bass are in production from August through December. Florida largemouth bass in season are in production from the middle of February through the end of June. Smallmouth bass are in production from the beginning of February through May. Channel catfish are in production from the middle of May through the end of July. Striped bass are in production from the middle of April through the end of May. Paddlefish are in production from the middle of April until the middle of August. Walleye are in production from the middle of April through the end of May. Koi carp and goldfish are in production from March through the middle of November. As you can see, the A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery stays busy year-round with the production of high-quality fry for the stocking of public waters. Through renovation of existing facilities and incorporation of the newest in fish culturing and spawning technology, the A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery is able to produce greater numbers of fish with a higher survival rate. Final quiz. What type of solution helps stimulate mucus production? A, chlorine, B, salt, C, citric acid, D, zooplankton. Eggs are treated with formalin to prevent A, fungus, B, scale, C, consumption by predators, D, premature hatching. During incubation, optimum water temperature for channel catfish is A, 60 degrees, B, 75 degrees, C, 80 degrees, D, 85 degrees. The fish are trained to eat food in the A, reservoir, B, round tanks, C, feeding tray, D, raceways. Another name for flathead catfish is A, yellow cats, B, Opelousas, C, blue cats, D, both A and B. Mucus is a natural defense mechanism, B, artificial substance, C, sign of illness or disease, D, indication of poor water quality. Which of the following types of water is used at the hatchery? A, river, B, reservoir, C, treated, D, all of the above. In Texas, paddlefish are A, stocked in the Pecos River, B, a sport fish, C, an endangered species, D, all of the above. The hatchery trailer can haul how many fingerlings at one time? A, 1,500 pounds, B, up to 400,000, C, 100,000 gallons, D, 1 to 1.5 million. Adult paddlefish weigh A, 2 to 5 pounds, B, 25 to 35 pounds, C, 50 to 65 pounds, D, 130 to 150 pounds.
This concludes your tour of the hatchery, and we hope you'll join us again on one of the following CEV video field trips: the winery, the greenhouse, egg production, the dairy farm, the dairy plant, cotton production, leather production, lumber production, tractor manufacturing,